Hello and welcome to Universus. Today we're going in a little bit of a weirder direction, and we're not going to be talking about any of the cards. We're more going to be talking about reading your opponent during a game. What do I mean by this? I mean about looking at the body language your opponent's emitting and trying to read it to see if you can tell how their game is going despite what's actually happening in the game. Body language is a way that our body acts either consciously or subconsciously that lets people around us know how we're feeling, how we're doing, without us having to verbally communicate it. And during a game, you are essentially locked across from someone in an intimate setting for an hour, and being able to read your opponents is a huge way to gain an advantage in the game before cards even get played. The first thing I would like to point out, there is no Pinocchio effect. There is no universal tells into reading your opponent's body language. It is all very subjective. So during your games, do try to pick up on subtle things that your opponent will do that are unique to them. After your opponent's had a very good turn or a very strong build or has opened a very good hand, try to look at your opponent's expressions, the way their posture, the way that they're sitting, the way that they're acting, so you can then take that as a mold and see how they act versus a bad turn. Once they draw their initial hand, you will be able to check the way they're acting. There are some tactics that people use to profile, interrogate, question that are not universal but are key indicators of emotional situations. Crossing your arms is not a defensive move. That is not defensive. That is not you trying to push people away. That is a self-comforting. That is a self-hug. So if your opponent puts their cards down and crosses their hands, then it could be that they're concerned, they're worried, they're trying to self-soothe, self-comfort. If your opponent is not making eye contact, if their eyes are darting around, if they're looking at other situations, it could be that they're seeking a source of comfort, a friend or someone in the room that is a source of comfort to them to help them get through what they're doing. Or if their eyes are darting around, looking at the stage, looking at the hand, and looking into the discard, looking at your stage, their eyes can be an indication of deep thought. There's also two other kind of micro expressions that will happen when your opponents are not in a great situation. First of all is what is called the bunny squint, where the bridge of the nose will wrinkle. So when you open a hand, when you see something that you don't really like, your brow will go down and you'll get that squint. You'll also get something which is called the Galabella effect. When you see something that disgusts you, when you see something you don't like, when you see something that puts you on edge, it will cause your lips to crease subconsciously. They'll become more pressed, they'll become more sucked in. So if you open a hand you don't like, even just subconsciously, the lips go in. The lips will retreat, the lips will crease, and that is a great way to tell what your opponent's doing. This is also a great thing to look out for yourself as you're playing. Look for sense of tension. The neck is a great source there. The neck naturally has a tilt. Once that neck tilt stops, once they become more relaxed, once they sort of ease into a more relaxed body, that shows that your opponent is in a stronger position. The more tense, the more rigid your opponent's movements are, the more high up their shoulders are, the more rigid their neck is. The more tense your opponent is, the stronger your position is, because your opponent is not quite sure what to do or believes themselves to be in a bad position. While playing, keep an eye on your opponent's shoulders and hands. Slight movements in the shoulders can be a big giveaway to how your opponent's feeling. The more relaxed and lower they are, the better. The higher up, the more stressed they are. The hands are also a great sign. The more your opponent flicks through their cards, the more they rub their hands together, the more they fidget, the more they tap, the more that stressed and more tense they are. These are self-soothing mechanisms, again, the same as the arms crossed. Also look at your opponent's hand position. Apart from on webcam, of course, where you have to keep your hand in frame, the further out your opponent's hands are, the more confident they're feeling, the happier they are, the more further they are willing to keep those cards away from themselves, the better they're feeling. the less distance that they have between you and their cards, the more worried they are, the more stressed they are. This is something that you can implement, sort of pseudo trick your opponent, so you can, if you've got a bad hand, keep the cards further away. It is a tactic of the art of war to project strength when you are weak and weakness when you're strong. So you can try to trick your opponent with your body language, but this takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and your micro expressions will betray you against someone who's very good at reading body language. One of the great things about this game is until your opponent plays their first card, you haven't really got that much to do. You can plan, you can strategize. What I would start recommending doing is, if you're interested in reading body language, just stare at your opponent. Just look at what they're doing, just try to see what they're emitting. You are, as I said at the beginning of the video, you are locked into this very kind of intimate situation with someone for maximum of an hour, and this gives you time to start to study a person. During game one, there is nothing stopping you just trying to read your opponent's expressions, your opponent's micro expressions, and trying to see what they're doing, and this could give you an edge. Reading body language can fall under the skill that people call game sense. Being able to tell when your opponent's in a bad position, being able to tell when you can press your advantage and push into win, is very, very strong and can mean the difference between a win and a loss. So developing this skill is something you'll get through playing. The more you can play, the more you can interact with people, the better you'll get at reading people. It is a very tough skill to gather. If everyone could do it, they would be doing it. But it is something to be mindful in yourself. What are you emitting to your opponent? Because you don't know if your opponent's also trying to read you. You're not going to be able to cover everything. Reading your opponent's body language, minding your own body language and what you're emitting, is a great way to have an advantage during games. We talk about the card skills and the interactions. We talk about knowing the sets. We talk about the luck aspect. We don't talk about reading your opponents. If you've ever been sat across from your opponent and gone and just played an attack and then just had this feeling of they don't have this block, they don't have the defense to stop me killing them, that is because you have subconsciously picked up on what your opponent is transmitting. I'm being very hypocritical. I am very transparent when I play games. If I'm having a good time, if I'm having a good hand or a bad time, I'm just too honest when I do that kind of stuff. I just want to have every game to be a good game. But I do know there's some players out there who try to project confidence no matter what their hand is, and they also spend a good amount of time reading their opponents. And if you're an aspiring control player, reading body language is something you should definitely be looking into doing if you're not already doing it. This is a bit different than the content we usually put out there, but I think this is a skill that people need to be aware of, that they need if they want to be a competitive player. Or if you just got that one local that you cannot beat, by reading their body language. It is a very cool skill to have, and let me know how you get on. Is this something you'd considered before? Is this something you were doing without even knowing? Let me know about the experiences you've had where you've just had this feeling that this is the turn you can kill without any kind of backup, without any kind of information to back it up. And if you want more content like this was very difficult. I had to do a lot of research into body language and interrogation tactics and emitting. But if this video does well, if people interact with it, if people want this content, I will do more research. I will try and put out more videos on this, on the skills that you need outside of the game to be good at this game. Thanks for watching. Bye.
If you don't like and subscribe, this creeper will explode. 5, 4, 3, 2,